the radical leftists, they react to me this way. They say, well, you hold a position of privilege and power. And I think, first, you don't know a goddamn thing about me, and you have no idea how I got to my position of privilege and power. And it was no birthright, I can tell you that. I was a small, like, thick-glassed, intellectual, what do you call that, athletic child. You know, I was a year younger than my peers. I suffered plenty of, what would you say, trouble for my loud mouth and my intellect when I was growing up, you know. I had my struggles. I'm not complaining about it. The point is that you can't attribute privilege to a class of people, you know, and you can't attribute power to people who happen to occupy a position of competence and authority either. There's some possibility that they occupy that because they worked hard, and were fortunate, let's not forget about that, and had some good social support and didn't have some horrible disease, thank God. But you can't just make the case that the position is there as a reward. It's not there as a reward at all. It's there as a consequence of the person offering something valuable to those who want to pay for it. And the reason you pay for them isn't to reward them. It isn't so that you give them a pat on the back and say, well, you're a good person and you deserve this position. It's because you're saying to them, produce. We find what you're producing of value. And so we're going to give you what you need in order to be motivated to keep doing it. But it's not because we like you. It's not because we respect your rights. It has nothing to do with equity. It's we're trying to get every goddamn thing we can from you as fast as possible. And we're going to pay you to do it. And so people deserve their damn pay. And the reason they deserve it isn't because it's a reward. It's because that's how you get productive people to do things that are difficult and time-consuming and that perhaps they wouldn't do on their own accord, to continue doing them so you can benefit from it. So the whole notion that, we're awarding positions of privilege to oppressive patriarchal types, it's like, we just have to get rid of that. Enough of that. That's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And the other thing too is, it's only been 30, 40 years, 50 years since women had reliable birth control, right? And we're able to enter the workforce en masse. I'll tell you, man, we've produced a cultural revolution in like 50 years. Women are everywhere. It's like, how bloody fast do you expect something like that to go? And what makes you think that pushing it really hard is going to make it go any better? I mean, as far as I can tell, we managed that transition about as well as we possibly could have. We're still sorting out the details. But the fact that, this is coming very rapidly down the pipes, the fact that half of our corporate board members are women is not indicative of the fact that we live in an unconsciously biased, misogynistic, patriarchal society. Sorry, wrong, not correct. And so we shouldn't be allowing, and this is happening very, very rapidly, and you can be sure Kathleen Wynne is going to be putting this in as policy as rapidly as she possibly can, these equity demands to ensure that there's proportional representation of every gender, every sex, every race, every ethnicity, at every level of every organization. It's like, really? We're going to do that by governmental fiat? It's like, that's not a society I want to live in, I tell you. And I'm quite certain that if you lived in that society for any length of time, you'd learn very rapidly that it isn't a society that you'd want to be part of either. Citizens have the inalienable right to benefit from the results of their own honest labor. That's a good one. Yes, that's a conservative truism. Why? Well, it isn't because you're good-hearted and you want them to have money. It's because they'll work if you let them benefit from the work, and you want them to work, because if they work, then they do things that you need. It's as simple as that. It's self-interest, and it's the right kind of self-interest. So if you work hard, it's like, great, have your money. And you hear people all the time talking about how corrupt our society is and how the 1%, occupies this pinnacle position. The 1% turns over pretty damn fast, just so you know it. So you have about a 10% chance of spending at least 1 year in the top 1% chance during your life. I think that's right. I think it's 10%. It might be higher than that. But it's fast. The 1% is stable as a phenomena, but it turns over very rapidly in terms of who occupies it. And it's the same in every society. The wealth is always distributed inequitably. It's a natural law. You can look it up. It was discovered by a guy named Wilfred Pareto back in the late 1800s. Goods tend to distribute themselves inequitably. It can be a problem, but it doesn't mean that there's something fundamentally corrupt about the social structure that's driving it in that direction. And like, you don't want some filthy rich geniuses lying around? Like, maybe you do. I mean, look at what Elon Musk is doing, for God's sake. Maybe he should have 10 times as much money as he has. He's going to launch a rocket every 5 days to Mars in the next 10 years, right? He wants to wipe out fossil fuel cars, and he might do it. He wants to revolutionize the transportation system, and he might do it. He wants to put us on the damn solar grid with his new batteries, and he might do it. It's like, oh no, he has a couple of $1 billion. Well, God only knows what he's going to produce with that. It's like, so obviously there's going to be some corrupt rich plutocrats who do nothing but smoke cigars and snort cocaine. They're not going to live very long anyways. But there's lots of people out there who have the money they have because they would really like to do interesting and creative things with it, not because they're interested in gathering more, paper money to stuff in their mattress and to feel the smooth delight of gold coins between their fingers before they go to bed. Like, what kind of attitude is that towards people who've made their fortune? You think that about Steve Jobs? You think that about Bill Gates? I mean, good God, I don't know how, those people made a lot of money, but man, thank God they were around, They've given us some tools that are just absolutely unbelievable. So, maybe we could leave the jealousy of the successful behind for a while and notice now and then that some of the people who got to where they are actually deserve to get to where they are, and we should be thankful that they exist. That would be nice, a little gratitude, and that's a good conservative value too. It is more noble to teach young people about responsibilities than about rights. That's a good conservative message. It's like you have a son, or you have a daughter, and you say, bloody well, grow up, stand on your own 2 feet, make something of yourself, right? So that I can be proud of you when you come over, and so that maybe you're useful in a crisis. It's like, pick up your damn load and shoulder it and do something useful and forget about your damn rights for a while. You can think about what it is that you should be doing to benefit yourself and your family and society, and you'll find some purpose in your life because of that. And so, well, that's a counterposition to the perpetrators of the endless rights buffet, right? Well, as long as we give you enough rights, you're going to be what? Free? You're going to be happy? It's like, yeah, sure. You'll drown in a sea of chaos. And that's what's happening to people now too. So, and that's why young people are so hungry to have someone talk to them about responsibilities. Here's another one. Radical change should be viewed with suspicion, particularly in a time of radical change. Okay, there's never been a time in the history of the world where things are changing as fast as they are now. And not only are they changing fast, the rate at which they're changing is increasing. Like, we're moving fast forward at such a rate that it's unbelievable. You can't even keep up. I don't care what discipline you're in. It's like, it's not so bad to have some people putting their feet in the ground, they're digging their heels in and say, look, we got a lot to swallow already, we got a lot to chew on and digest. Let's not muck about with everything that's worked so far. What has worked? It's not such a bad idea for people to have long-term families, right? We could say, let's try to support the family. We could even say, let's try to support the traditional family. Why? Well, maybe boys and girls need role models of each sex. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but it is possible. It's certainly the case too that intact two-parent families have children that thrive more than broken families. And broken families are a catastrophe for everyone. Now you might say, well, I shouldn't stay with someone that I don't get along with. And it's like, yeah, fair enough, except that there's no one that you're ever going to find to stay with that you're going to get along with all of the time, especially in your shoddy condition. And so you're lucky that anybody will put up with you for a week, much less your whole life. It's like the point of marriage is to tough it out. And you don't tough it out for your happiness. That's not what you're in there for. You tough it out so that you have someone to tie the rope of your life together with it. You have a chance to tie the rope of your life together with the rope of someone else's life, and to make it strong, and to make a place that children can have some security and some encouragement, and thereby contribute to the future and pay for the miracle of your birth and your own raising. That's why you get married. And there's no reason that conservatives can't stand up and say, look, we're willing to tolerate alternative family arrangements, but when you start making the claim that the traditional family unit is just another construct and that it's not something fundamental to our polity, it's like, you've taken your damn argument too far. First of all, you have no evidence whatsoever for that claim, and there's plenty of counter evidence. So, one of the things the postmodernists basically say is, every time you stand up for something, you're also standing against something. It's like, yeah, that's true. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't stand up for things. And I think if there is something that conservatives could agree on that we could stand up for, it's the nuclear family. Now exactly how that's going to play out, I don't exactly know. But it's not anything to be ashamed of to say, well, it kind of looks like that structure's worked quite well for the entire duration of mankind, and so maybe we mess with it at our peril.